our guy Krug, man. Let's talk football with the man who lives it, who breathes it. You're listening to Knbr AM and Knbr FM San Francisco, the sports leader, Cumulus Media Station. You can see Larry on the YouTube and in the Twitch. And, of course, you can listen to him in your car, too. You can hear him every night at 6 o'clock. You can watch him on YouTube constantly. Krug, it's Niners. How are you, brother?
What's up, Larry?
What's going on, fellas? A lot of passion for 49er football in early March. Good to see.
It is good. It is good to see. Okay, so I guess we're going to go macro, 30,000 feet. Do the 49ers know what they're doing right now?
I think they do. I mean, you could some people arguing that this should have happened a year ago, but they were coming off a Super Bowl and they were trying to defend that title and they were coming off a Super Bowl appearance and they wanted to run it back and see if they could get it done, and they couldn't. So you could argue this was a year late, but this had to happen. You had some older players. Things turn over fast in the NFL. Eventually, you got to pay all your guys. Once you start paying your quarterback 50 or 60 times what you're paying him, that has a tendency to impact your books. And I got to be honest, Greenlaw bothered me because Greenlaw is still a young player, and in a lot of ways, he's the heart and soul of the team defensively. The rest of the guys, thanks for coming. But I think they could be upgraded completely.
Larry, when you look at the moves that the 49ers have made this season, or I guess the moves they haven't made, letting guys walk away, how much of that do you think is impacted not only by the Brock Purdy upcoming contract, but the contract they handed out last year to Brandon Ayuk?
Well, it's clearly all connected, and it sounds like Lynch is maybe hell-bent on parting with Ayuk, and I would expect to see that at some point. But it's tied to. I mean, it's about being fiscally prudent. I think maybe in the past they would have said, you know what, we really, really want Joey Bosa. Well, you know what, our intellect says let's keep him between 8 and 10 million. Yeah, but our emotion says let's pay him whatever we need to get him. And he got whatever he got, 12 and a half, 13, whatever he got, and that's more than I would have paid him, and I think that's more than they would have paid him, and I think they were smart to kind of hold their ground.
Well, you were pretty confident yesterday they were going to sign him, right? Was that
really
just
was.
hearing? I mean, and it turned out to be money, you think?
Yeah, no, I definitely. I mean, the Bosas get paid. There was talk that he wanted to come here and play with his brother. Then there was talk that he wanted to stay home and play with Miami. And in the 11th hour, the Bills rolled in with bigger money and made the deal. So, I mean, it's as simple as that. I think the 49ers probably were in the neighborhood that I was talking about. And Bosa was going the other way, right? He took a pay cut from $22 million down to $15 million in order to stay with the Chargers, but he didn't want to take a bigger haircut, and so he gets a little bit more money to go to Buffalo. And you could probably make an argument, and his agent probably made this argument to him, hey, look, if you really want to win a ring, are you really running to the Niners right now at this point, or should you go to one of these other teams? And he chose Buffalo.
Yeah, and Larry, I think a lot of people expected the 49ers to kind of reuse the money that they're saving when they released Leonard Floyd to give that to Joey Bosa. But now here we are on Wednesday morning, and there's no Joey Bosa and there's no Leonard Floyd. So talk to us about the 49ers' decision to move on from Leonard Floyd.
Well, I mean, Leonard Floyd is a good football player. I mean, he's, he always gets roughly 10 sacks, and yet if you looked at his PFF grades, they weren't anything to, it showed regression there. It showed that he's not one of the elite guys, and now it's on them to go do it in the draft. The talk is that the Niners are really enamored with the UCLA guy, which who likes anybody from UCLA, right?
Hey,
UCLA. Come on. But the former Cal Bear, Olufemi Oladejo, who the Bruins moved to defensive end this year, and he looked amazing. Well, the Niners supposedly are kicking tires on him and maybe have some interest in him, maybe as early as the second round of the draft. So that's a name I think you should familiarize yourself with. But they are all in on the draft. And, we got, 6-7 weeks to break it down. But this is easily the most pivotal draft in the history of this regime. They have at least 10 needs, and they do have enough picks to get it done right now. But, it's going to be close. They're going to have to really be very successful. And I understand the Ryan Clarks of the world who are like, hey, trade McCaffrey and, go that direction. I understand if you're going to rebuild the argument to be all in, but I don't think the Niners view it as a rebuild. I think they feel like they can retool on the fly with the structure they have, the players they have, and contend.
Larry Krueger, man, you hear him Niners Nightly, of course, on Knbr, 6 o'clock. People calling in, got their takes. Everybody's, like you said, a lot of passion for the 49ers right now in early March. So here's my big one was, listen, it's March 12th, and things can change. So I'm not going to put this in blood, but I would say in general, the 49ers have removed themselves from Super Bowl contention this season. That it feels like they're kind of building like, we're going to sign Purdy, we're going to develop Pearsall and this crew, and then we're going to draft young, and we're going to have to get the Mustafa crew and the Ronaldo Green crew are going to mesh with this crew, and we'll start kind of restarting our run 26, 27, 28. How do you feel about that?
I would say I'd push back on that. I just don't believe the 49ers aren't going to be a contender this year. They got a really easy schedule. I think double-digit wins or in a playoff berth or in their future. Will this be a vintage team? No, it probably is going to be a pretty young team, especially if I get what I'd like and they trade back and they even get more rookies than they even have plans for right now. But, I mean, if you really look at them offensively, it's basically the same team, sans Debo and Ayuk. So it's like, what are you going to do at receiver? Now, they did pick up DeMarcus Robinson yesterday, who's a 2-time Super Bowl winner coming off a career year with the Rams. He scored 7 touchdowns. He looked good against the Niners. So maybe DeMarcus Robinson helps out. But they need some kind of an impact at wide receiver on offense. If they get that, they're maybe one offensive lineman away from being a pretty complete offense. Defensively, I think is where that defensive front seven in the draft is going to have to be built up, and they're going to have to be successful. But, we saw the Eagles look horrible. I mean, let's just remember how bad the Eagles looked against Tampa Bay in the playoffs last year. There was infighting. They had a terrible pass defense. They brought in Fangio. They drafted a couple guys, Cooper DeJean and the kid from Toledo, Quinyon Mitchell. They made a couple astute free agent signings, and they ran. They dominated in the Super Bowl and beat Kansas City. So I think it's premature to say the Niners aren't going to be a contender this year. It doesn't look good on March 12th, but there's a lot to be said between now and camp.
Larry, real quick to circle back to the signing of DeMarcus Robinson, Les Snead had some comments at the NFL Combine about his offseason DUI and how he could potentially face a suspension. What are you hearing on that front?
Well, I mean, that's going to have to be dealt with, and obviously those are real problems that he has to deal with. And you make decisions in life. There's consequences. There's a chance that he's not ready at the very start of the year because of a suspension that's tied to that, and that's just part of his equation. Hopefully that's just a blip on the radar. Obviously that's something that we hope is not a trend at all, but yeah, he's going to have to deal with that, and there is a chance that he'll miss week 1.
Yeah, and especially since we're talking about Brandon Ayuk not being ready to start the season, do you think the 49ers might still maybe look to add a piece in the wide receiver room, whether it's through the draft or another veteran free agent?
Well, I don't think there's any question, Marcus. The 49ers are going to have to add a significant receiver. Now, who's that going to be? I mean, they've met with Isaiah Bond from Texas, who's got a lot of speed. They've met with Trey Harris from Ole Miss. I don't think they're going to go receiver with Teteroa McMillan or Luther Burden at 11 or in round 1. I think the needs on the O-line and D-line and pass rusher, far exceed the wide receiver. But I would say in round 2, I could see them go after Trey Harris from Ole Miss, Isaiah Bond from Texas. Those are 2 pretty explosive guys. Savion Williams, very similar to a Debo Samuel. He's another guy that could be a day 2 pick for them.
All right, pretty soon we'll let Larry go and prepare for more YouTube at the Krug Show and Niners Nightly on Knbr. But just in general now, I want to go back to kind of what your answer was to my Super Bowl question. It's about the front 7. So, like, to me, the reason why I'm saying, like, right now that cupboard is bare, like, really bare. Yeah. So, like, let's just kind of craft some sort of game plan to help out Bosa and Warner. Unless, do you believe in your Yetur Gross-Matos and who's the I gotta have it right here.
Drake Jackson?
Sam Okwanu. My bad. His name slipped my brain right now. And then the tackles being Jordan Elliott, Kevin Givens, Evan Anderson, and Kalia Davis. That's my thing, Larry.
I mean, okay, so what do they have right now? To me, they have a starter in Bosa and a starter potentially in Evan Anderson. I think Jordan Elliott's a backup. I think Yatir Gross-Matos is a backup. They re-signed Kevin Givens, so he'll be back. He's one of the longest tenured Niners. Aquinu's a really underrated player, to be honest. I mean, he can play inside, he can play outside. He's strong as a bull. He's 270 pounds, 6'1", really strong. So he's there. He's solid as a backup. But, yeah, they need at least one. They need another starter opposite Bosa, defensive end. They need another starter in the interior, and they probably could use a third guy up front that's just a rotational pass rusher, a big rotational pass rusher, and maybe a couple edge rushers because you don't know about Drake Jackson's knee, how he's going to recover. Will Gross-Matos be on the team, or will he be a cap casualty? Is Robert Beal ever going to figure it out? So I think you need a couple edge rushers. You probably need probably somewhere between 3 to 5 new defensive linemen. And I think it's doable. I mean, it's an exceptional defensive line draft, and you could fill let's say you went Kenneth Grant in round 1 or somebody like that from Michigan. If the kid Mason Graham fell in your lap, you come back with Oladipo in round 2, and now you've got an edge rusher and a defensive tackle of note, and things look a whole lot better. So they definitely need to hit in this draft. They better pay attention in their spring draft meetings because it's going to be pivotal.
Last question for me, Larry, to end on a positive note. Do you think the 49ers have at least improved on special teams after some of these signings we've seen in these first 2 days?
Well, I don't think there's any question. Brant Boyer, wants some special teams guys, and he got one in Luke Gifford, the linebacker. He got another one in Luke Farrell, who I think is going to be a good blocker. I think that what the Niners have gotten done in free agency, it's not obviously big names or guys that would make you go, whoa. But Trey Brown is a pretty good player who, whatever reason, fell out of, he's in the doghouse for Mike McDonald, but he was a good player for Pete Carroll. And he's not old. I mean, we're talking about a guy in his prime. Richie Grant in his prime. Jason Pinnock, who played at Pittsburgh, corner and safety, real solid players. So I think they got 3 solid defensive backfield guys. Grant, a safety. The other 2 guys can play corner. And for relatively, a relative pittance. So I think there's been some good things, but they need to do more before the draft rolls around.
All right, Krug, who leads the Giants in homers this year, and what's the number?
Can I order off the menu and say a vote for Luis Matos?
Ooh, that's a hot take.
I like that, Larry.
He's gonna get
love me some Luis Matos. I talked to him after the game the other day. I talked to him in the clubhouse. He looks great. He might be this year's Elliot Ramos. He was the MVP of the Venezuelan Winter League. He showed up in camp. Last year he was bigger. This year he looks a little bit better. And man, he's turning on pitches, and every day he does something that makes you go, that guy is special.
Because the chalk would say Chapman, Adames, and Ramos are your Vegas leaders, but you're going up. How about a Wilmer Flores as a sneak attack?
Well, I would go
Gerard Encarnacion.
Well, he looks good too.
Yes.
I would say the safe money play is clearly Chapman. Chapman looks outstanding, man. Chapman right now is picking it and hitting like 550. He looks amazing. But Matos is going to be a surprise.
You did not say Jung-Hoo Lee.
Jung-Hoo Lee.
How many tags for Jung-Hoo Lee this year? We get 15?
I'm saying
15?
No, I'm saying 12 bombs and 10 stolen bases.
Only 10?
Yeah, I think but I'll say this though, he's going to play the heck out of center field, and as long as he, stays away from the outfield wall, I think the Giants, he's going to have a calming effect on them if he can play, let's say, 130 games in center, something like that.
You know what my hot take was that Marcus and I still have bitterness over? I said I think by a hair Grant McCray might be a better defensive center fielder than Jung-Hoo Lee.
I don't know about that, Larry.
He doesn't like that.
Well, I'll say this: great guy. Grant McCray is a really great guy to talk to. I think Grant McCray is another guy. I mean, now he struck out 35% of the time.
Way too much. Yes.
That's Larry Krueger in home run derby. That's not good stuff. So I'll say he needs to get more contact going. But if Grant McCray can just make a little bit more contact, he could be an exciting player
Yeah,
for
yeah.
them.
And throw down a bun every now and then. All right, fun stuff, Larry. Be good. We'll listen to you tonight.
Yeah, thanks, Larry.